Kriega! Bundle up. Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and welcome to the library. I'm Tennessee Fats. We're coming to you today with a video that's a little off kilter, but I wanted to expose some of you who might not have seen this before to this particular thing. And don't take that in a dirty way. It's definitely not a dirty thing. Here's the deal, guys. Heavy Metal Magazine is back. And I know we've already covered a couple topics about that very thing here on this channel. We walked through issue number 1 and the Kickstarter around that, and even just a little bit of some information about the Heavy Metal Angry Mob. But hey, what happens in the Angry Mob stays in the Angry Mob. Issue number 2, though, is out. It's been out for a couple weeks. So today we're going to walk through, high level, some of my thoughts on that. Now, many of you are going to say, well, Tennessee Fats, why? Well, here's the thing. I always enjoyed Heavy Metal Magazine back in the day. But the issue is that I was always coming in and out of it, and I never really picked it up on a sustained basis. Now that this is relaunched, with legacy issues, I guess, 321 and 322, which are issue number 1 and 2 post-Kickstarter, I'm having a chance to read this continuous. And I might only be 2 issues in, but I'm picking up things now as I'm reading these, and even as I'm rereading older issues that speak more to me now as I'm 50 than they ever did when I was younger. So today we're going to do things quite different than what we did in Heavy Metal Review number 1. What we're going to do today is we're just going to walk through my top 3 finds in this particular issue. The reason why we're doing that is simple. I don't want to spoil it for you guys. This was a lot of fun. The issue had a lot of good stuff in it. And the bottom line is I could sit here and flip through every page. But what's the point? Many people who wanted to pick this up have already picked it up. It's been out for several weeks. This video is here just to wet your whistle a little. If you're a Sword and Sorcery guy like me, and you're saying, well, what's in here for me? Well, let's walk through my top 3 stories here, and I'll explain why these are speaking to me. Many of you have already read it and are heavy metal, well, diehards. You might actually enjoy this one just to see what my top 3 were. Maybe you want to type in your top 3 here as well. So what we're going to do, without any further ado, we're going to turn the camera around. We're going to sit down at the desk of accusation, and we're going to go through what are the top 3 that I found in here. We'll share some images with you, and then we'll also go into some honorary mention. That's an HM thing. And then we'll wrap this bad boy up with final thoughts in the end of the video. Without any further ado, let's get into the book. Alright, let's get into this bad boy. Let's walk through what I found to be my top 3 stories within this particular issue of Heavy Metal Magazine. Now again, these are my top 3. Doesn't mean they're going to be your top 3. Any of you who have read the issue, if you have a different top 3 and you want to completely disagree with me, or you just want to say, hey, here are my tops, down below in the comments. I always enjoy reading the feedback. All right, we're sitting at the desk of accusation, but that does not mean we're accusing anybody. That's just the name of the desk. And we're also sitting on the world's squeakiest chair. So if any of you are triggered by squeaky sounds, be prepared for being triggered, because we're going to be doing a lot of that. All right, top 3. I had a really hard time getting myself down to 3 for this particular issue. When I went through this and I put post-it notes in the whole story, I covered the magazine in post-it notes. I was like, this is really good, this is really good, this is really good. But I said, no, stay on target, go to 3, and we drilled it on down. Really, getting to 5 was okay. It was somewhat easy. Getting to 3, that was a tough one. But we made it. We made it at the end of the day. All right, number 1. Let's jump into this one right now. Bear in mind, I'm a Sword and Sorcery guy, so really this one shouldn't surprise most of you who've already read the issue itself. The story is called The Ancient Pact. Now this is a fun one, and it's a fun one because it takes a traditional bar fight and mixes it with Irish Gaelic mythology in such a way that it turns it into an entire fantasy story. Now you never leave the bar. Well, you do. You go into the bar and you come out of the bar. But you never really see that much going on. It's not some massive epic. But when you're wondering, well, how do you turn a bar fight into something that's Irish Gaelic mythology type Sword and Sorcery thing? They totally did it. I'm not spoiling it. I refuse to tell you guys the twist of the end one, because there is a twist. And at the end of it, I laughed out loud. It shocked me that much. The twist on this one is as you're going through it, and I'm giving you the setup only. Here's the splash page. You'll notice there's a hint right there on the splash page. And you don't start to notice the hints until you start putting them together more and more as you go through. And the reason why is because they're very subtle. And there are pieces of language which are buried within, I guess, our North American culture a fair amount that we just forget them. And we don't really notice them. And it's an interesting piece because we have a lot of Gaelic mythology and language that we carry in the English language today. But if you're not from and I will say this with somebody I know quite well who is from this particular place, if you're not from Ireland and immersed in the whole Irish mythology and culture that goes with it, a lot of this will just go right over your head until you get to the end. And I'm not going to spoil it, but watch for the language in here. I do enjoy the fact that we basically took the surface world of a bar fight and then put a whole layer underneath it of fantasy that really just came together as a beautiful piece. And at the end, as I say, there's that twist where you go, yeah, it was nice. No spoilers here. I'm not ruining it. Check it out for yourself if you are interested in that sort of thing. Now, my number 2, and this one shouldn't, well, actually, this one is going to come as a shock, because you'd say, well, hold on, Tennessee Fats, you preface this by saying you're a Sword and Sorcery guy, so why would this be your number 2? And it actually is one of the top stories that I identified in issue number 1. And the story is called Bug by Enki Bilal. Now, if you want to know more about that particular story, I talked about it a fair amount in my review of issue number 1, and I'll put the link in the description down below. You can check it out, and warning, I'm going to walk through the whole story there and tell you what happened. Here we're going to do a quick little, well, somewhat spoiler-free synopsis. Society's falling apart. Society is falling apart because technology has failed it. It's a story that's a little bit in the future, and this story, if you really want to find out what's happening, it's already up to book 3, and it's released in the French language. I'm sure you can go on the Googles over there, tickety-tickety, and somebody will give you a synopsis that'll get you further ahead than where we are right now in the issues of Heavy Metal Magazine. We're only getting vignettes of 18 pages at a time here. There's 3 books for us to catch up in. So I'm not ruining it, I'm not spoiling it for myself, but it is one where, as I said, technology is failing and society is collapsing. Now you'd say, well, Tennessee Fats, why does this speak to you? It's funny because there isn't really a Sword and Sorcery component to this. There isn't really a fantasy component to this that would say this should be in my top 3. But what is coming through here is something very subtle. It is the collapse of society. And it's the themes that are coming from the collapse of society that are making this one jump at me the most. And I believe it's actually speaking to me the most because of my age. Now, hear me out on this one. In the story, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a vignette here, the countries, most of them, still exist and they're still vying for power. It's in the future, but not too far in the future. There are themes within here that are very common with what we're seeing in global affairs today. And if you're aware of it and watching it, without being skewed too much to one side or the other and just observing, you'll see these clearly coming out of the story, which is a fascinating thing. Obviously, the author is very much in touch with people, and I like that. But what's funny within this is, and I think the most telling piece, was one particular country decides to open up citizenship within the story to anybody who's born before a certain year. And the reason why is because they're saying people born this certain year have long-term memory that's configured in this way because technology hasn't corrupted it in this way. I won't tell you what it is, but it's fascinating to me that as a 50-year-old guy today, I wonder if I would be eligible for Chinese citizenship in this particular story, just because I could say, well, I remember that. Fascinating, and it really is, because it's talking to society collapsing, almost because it relies too much on technology. And if you're a fantasy or a Sword and Sorcery person, this is one of these things that's a theme you always love hearing, because like, ha ha, take it. Because you never want to laugh at society collapsing, but you do want to sort of say, I told you so a little bit. That's where I'm going to leave that one right there. Now, the last piece was a fight for me. Number 3. Number 3 was a tough one for me. I'll tell you, my first initial inkling was to give this to a particular story that was fairly interesting in its people dynamic. But at the end of the day, I fell back and I put it to a story that's actually a really short one. It's called Fire Shot. And this is an interesting piece, and it's only a couple pages. But again, it speaks to the theme that I mentioned in the first story, which was the Ancient Pact, where there's a layer underneath what we see as our day-to-day, that once you start becoming aware of it, it makes you more aware of this fantasy world that's sitting right there as the foundation for what we're looking at on the day-to-day. In this one, a particularly hard-nosed character takes what we're going to call it some sort of a mind-altering substance, to the point where he goes through this fantastic voyage of seeing things that are just mind-blowing. And when he thinks he comes back out of it, he finds that he's still surrounded by the same mind-blowing things, but back in his own world. It's almost like he's had his third eye opened and he's seeing things now that he didn't see before. And the imagery that's within that, I won't ruin it because I'm only showing you the splash page at the beginning here, is such that when you're looking at it, and you start to see small pieces of what we're going to call mysticism and religion and all sorts of things from all over the world, all within the same story. It really is a wonderful piece, and I think the theme here that's really jumping to me really is telling the story under the surface. And I think that's probably why I picked these top 3 as my top 3 in this particular issue. Now, if you have different number 1, 2, and 3, feel free to down below, let me know. Send me a message, say, hey Tennessee, I think these are the top 3. You're completely out to lunch. Mad respect for you all for having an opinion and thinking that way. We'll chat about it. We'll have a good time. So that's our top 3. Now let's get into the honorable mention ones. Okay, honorable mention time. Now, I think I'm fairly clever because I came up with honorable mention, and that's HM. See what you see? We're speaking the same. Okay, these are the stories that actually I wanted to just showcase slightly. I wanted to say, hey, pay attention to these. These are not worth ignoring because these may be things that are going to lead to something that, well, will jump out in a subsequent issue. Now, the first thing that I really want to talk to, and the first 2 pieces of honorable mention, are actually prose pieces. And I want to really make sure that if you pick up this magazine, you're taking the time to read through this stuff because there's a lot of value add that the editors and the authors are putting in here that really does give you something to take away. The first one of these really speaks to me. Any of you who have watched some of my other videos might notice that I have a slight leaning, in fact in the intro to this video, to Tarzan and Edgar Rice Burroughs material and things along those lines. We've done showcase books reviews here of various Edgar Rice Burroughs, or the Burroughs verse, I think is what they call it, the Wold Newton universe books. Edgar Rice Burroughs, to me, is an interesting topic. There's a wonderful prose piece at the front of this that talks about Edgar Rice Burroughs' Inc.'s offices, which are in California. And I gotta tell you, as somebody who only recently found out that this was an office and this was even a thing, seeing this showcase at the front of the magazine just makes me want to go and see it more. Now, there are some travel restrictions that I've self-imposed right now with regards to actually going here and seeing this, but maybe down the road this will be something that's now on my list. And I do appreciate the fact that the authors and the editors are taking the time to put in heavy metal and heavy metal adjacent content right at the front of the magazine. Second prose piece, which I think was really, really good, and I do think you should pay attention to it, is called The Birds of Margley. Now, I need to check the spelling on that one because it doesn't flow off the tongue all that well. It's a wonderful prose story. There's some imagery that goes with it, which I thought was somewhat apropos to the tone of the story. But that's a story that's got layers. And the layers within that make you go, hold on, where are we now? What do we do? It's an action-packed, quick story that just keeps your attention. And I would encourage you, when you pick this up, don't be tempted to skip the prose pieces. They are really adding a lot of value to the magazine overall. So honorable mention to both of those. The last honorable mention piece that I'm going to throw in here is the second installment of the Gladiatrix story. Now, this is an interesting one. I talked about this, and I thought this is one of my top pieces that I identified in issue number 1. Issue number 2, and the story here, is continuing to develop more around the background of this character. Issue 1 was very much, blank slate, let's just throw a shotgun at the wall and see what information we can get out of this in issue number 1 as a reader. Issue 2 is we're starting to drill down more into, well, who is this character? What's going on here? And the twist and the world that this character is now in is such that you go, so as a Sword and Sorcery guy, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, oh, what are we looking at here? The story seems to be very S&S. What's this going to come out as? So those are, quite frankly put, the top pieces that I would drive you to say, okay, while you're reading, don't just jump to my top 3. Make sure you're checking out the rest as well. All right, now hold on here. Let's use the desk of accusation for exactly what it's worth here and just make it actually live up to its namesake. Now, I mentioned that I wasn't going to be doing any accusing here, but I might be dialing back that statement a little bit here because I was getting ready to do the wrap-up and I thought, no, we definitely have to say this. This magazine forced me, 50-year-old Tennessee Fats, to take a couple moments of personal growth. And I will respect that because it really pointed out something to me that I guess I was completely unaware of. But looking at it objectively from the outside, I can kind of see why that would be seen that way. See, there's an interview in here with a young man named Philip. Philip being the author of Love, Death, and Robots. And Philip's a big heavy metal fan. And I really enjoyed hearing about all the things that he's working on and what's upcoming. And particularly this feature film. It sounds like it's a lot of fun. And they interviewed Philip with regards to Heavy Metal Magazine. And one of the questions Josh, the interviewer, asked him was, do you feel the genre is lowbrow? And he's talking about Heavy Metal Magazine and fantasy and all those things overall. And I thought, okay, valid question. I was like, lowbrow. Hold on, let's just take a moment here. And I was thinking at that point in time, maybe it is. And I thought, no. Maybe, who knows? Let's see what Philip has to say. I think there are aspects that are, but those are my favorite aspects. Okay, good answer. I like where you're going with this. This is good hedging. Good. Take fantasy. Tolkien fantasy is seen as highbrow, and so is Game of Thrones. Now, I've never watched Game of Thrones, but I guess it is. Okay, sounds good. And Tolkien, yeah, I can see that as kind of highbrow. I wonder if it was seen as highbrow when it came out. Who knows? All right. But if you look at Conan the Barbarian, or grim darkly fantasy, it still feels like these are not respectable. Most of what I do on this channel is talk about Conan. That made me go, whoa, wait a minute, hold on, whoa. So I laughed. And then I stepped back, and I laughed again. Then I stepped back and wait a minute, am I lowbrow? You know, I think I am. Okay, let's wrap this bad boy. Well, I tell you, this was a fun one for me. And the reason why it was because I really got to drill down to, well, here's my top 3. And I didn't have to go into too much detail and spoil anything because, honestly, I really didn't want to. I wanted to leave this one open for any viewers out there who haven't picked up this issue, who are considering buying it. If you are considering buying it, I would encourage you to. It's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of stuff in here that pushes limits a little bit, and you got to respect that that's what Heavy Metal Magazine is trying to do. It's trying to push these limits. And at the same time, it's giving you some quality stories that are coming out of Europe as well as stuff that's being produced here. And that's a lot of fun because you're seeing things that otherwise you wouldn't see elsewhere. And I think that's one of Heavy Metal's strengths, really showcasing talent that you otherwise wouldn't see. Fun pieces in here that I thoroughly enjoyed. And if you are interested and you're interested in variant covers, for example, I can tell you there are a variety of different variants for issue number 2. You can go in the Heavy Metal shop and check it out yourself. Or try to get it ordered into your local comic shop. I'm sure they'd appreciate you doing that locally. Everybody, that's our video for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next one.
What do you mean I'm lowbrow?